Hi everyone, welcome again to another session of Learning Together. I am Christian and this is Literary Criticism class. In today's session, we are going to learn about historical biographical criticism, or this is also known as historicism. But before that, if you are new to this channel, please subscribe and tap the notification bell for you to be notified on my next videos. The historical biographical approach to literary interpretation and analysis, or also known as historicism, is probably the oldest and one of the most widely used critical approach in analyzing literary pieces. The historical biographical approach involves understanding the events and experiences surrounding the composition of the work, especially the life of the author and the time period when the work is being published or being written, and using these findings to interpret that work of literature. This is kinda in contrast with the first that we discussed, the textual or the formalist type of criticism. The focus of historical biographical approach is on the life, the times, and the environment of the author and the historical context. Now, historical context refers to the social, political, economic, cultural, and intellectual climate of the time period when the literary piece is being written. So meaning to say, if you are the reader or the critic using this approach in analyzing a literary piece, you would look according, or you will study the work according to the period in which the work is being produced. So meaning to say, your personal opinion, your value, your own perceptions are being set aside or being put aside. Okay? So using this approach, there are a lot of advantages, and more or less, I have here the few advantages for this approach. Using historicism or historical biographical approach in analyzing literary piece, it places the allusions in their proper classical, political, or biblical background, because we really have to travel back to when it was written. So it is being placed on its proper period. Next to that is there are a lot of social, cultural, and more or less linguistic changes that cannot be understood today without the help of this criticism. Okay? So this criticism would take us beyond the limited experience of our lives to show us the lives of others, giving us the experiences or we may not face in our lives. More or less, this approach would help us to deepen our understanding of our own history, the society, the lives of the people around us, and more or less, this approach in analyzing literary piece would help us to understand our individual lives. Among those mentioned advantages or the importance of this approach, we have also challenges for this one. Using historicism or historical biographical criticism, the art is reduced to the level of biography rather than universal. We have to take note that literature is supposedly universal, but with this one, it is put into limit because the analysis, the interpretation is only concentrated on the life of the author and the historical context, the time period when the literary piece is being written. And of course, this approach would always require to read a lot, to do research, and of course, prior knowledge of any historical events that may be present in the literary piece. Historicism has three classifications, namely post-colonialism, cultural studies, and new criticism. Now let's have first post-colonialism. What is post-colonialism? Post-colonialism would look at the history and the author's life at a very specific lens. It is interested in cultures and the way cultures clash. Okay? It is interested on the aftermath or the after effect of one culture coming in on top of another culture. Okay? So it looks on the way how one culture is being preserved or how one culture is being suppressed by the other culture. So for example, when we were colonized by the Spaniards, how our culture as Filipino being suppressed or is being preserved. Next is the cultural studies. Cultural studies, on the other hand, examine or look at one culture or idea and how this idea is being revealed in the text. Now the third one, new historicism, is kind of interesting because it challenges the meaning of history that is being put on the text. For traditional historicism, it takes the fact of history and nail it to the text to reveal its meaning. New historicism challenges that and say, how can we determine or how can we tell if that is really the fact? Because new historicism would regard history as just an opinion or a generalization of something. According to new historicism, that history goes to the winners. How about the losers? Okay, consider this example here. If you would say we were abused by the it is known to us that we were abused by the colonizers. Is it really true that we were abused? Lahat ba talaga ng tao ay naabuso? Okay? So that is the purpose of new historicism. New historicism would always listen to every corner of the row. So kumbaga, new historicism would regard kung ito ay nangyari sa kanya, nangyari ba din ito sa kanya at nangyari ba sa lahat ng participant in this one society? Okay, is this true to all? That's the question for new historicism. So new historicism would always consider or would always regard, listen to all the voices present in the text, big or small voices, and construct and tailor it down to come up with the meaning. Alright? And then there is no fixable meaning. And more or less, when analyzing a literary piece, when you do analysis, you have to consider this these strategies or guide questions for you to come up with your analysis paper. So more or less, you would ask the question, how does the work reflect the time in which it was written? How accurate does the story depict the time in which it is set? What literary or historical event influences or helped shape the form and content of the work? Does the work reveal or contradict to the prevailing values of the time in which it was written? To what extent does the work reflect differences from the ideas or values in a time? And what influences people, ideas, movements, events evident in the writer's life? Does the work reflect? And more or less, do any events in the story experienced by the author or what particular aspects of the author's life that are relevant to the story or of this particular literary piece? So meaning to say, all before you can get the answers, before you can answer all the questions here, you really need to conduct research, to do a background reading of the author, and then try to figure out what particular event in this particular literary piece that is aligned or that is true to the author's life, or is this really the author's reflection of what he has experienced, or this is the contradict of what the author had experienced. Okay, so again, this historical-biographical criticism or historicism would really require us a thorough reading and then additional researches, especially for the life of the author and the historical event that is being embedded on that particular literary piece. Alright? And I hope you understand the discussion today, and see you again in my next video.